Good evening. I'm going to be very quick. Thank you, everybody, for coming, and thank you for the opportunity to host Simcha. My name is David Schechtman. I've been here since 6:30 in the morning, so I'm going to go really quick. This is where I work. I always find that it's helpful to know a little bit about who's hosting you and who you're sitting with. And I'm really nobody special. I'm a 49-year-old real estate executive in New York who used to practice law. There's a few of us Jewish guys who do stuff like that. So apparently 1 in every 7 people in the island of Manhattan is a lawyer, and probably more than that are Jews. So really, I'm nondescript. But why I'm excited to have you here tonight is I grew up in Canarsie and then moved to Merrick, Long Island. I lived a very conservadox, leaning towards nothing, ritualistically life. Apparently, it was okay to eat treif meat if it was on a paper plate. So I lived a very interesting life. But when I turned 16 years old, my father handed me 3 things. He handed me a stack, and this is an original, of magazines of some crazy guy named Maya Kahana. These are real. He handed me a .22 caliber pistol, which I was already proficient with, and he handed me a round-trip ticket when I was 16 years old to go work on Kibbutz Masada. And by the way, Ani lomed be'ivrit, even that sounds terrible. I don't speak a word of Hebrew other than prayers. And he handed me a round-trip ticket that I should spend the summer in Israel. And I said, why, other than, Gold Star beer? He said, because you need to learn a little bit about something. You are different. That didn't mean a lot to me growing up in Brooklyn, living on Long Island, and going to sleepaway camp with a bunch of other overprivileged, gregarious Jewish kids. I didn't understand what different was because New York was safe. It was safe to wear a yarmulke. It was safe to be so arrogant to say I'm Jewish because I had a bar mitzvah. Forget the yarmulke part. That's for guys in Crown Heights. But as I got older and as I traveled the world, and as I had 3 children, I started to realize over time that, and it's a horrible thing to say, that most of the world doesn't really like us, including most of the Jews that I know don't like most of the Jews that I know. And it's a horrible, horrible thing to say. I believe that there's biblical reasons for this. Remember, we were offered the covenant not first, not second, but third. So maybe there's some reasons that are biblical and from Torah itself why the world views us differently. But let's face it, we've kind of had a rough time the last 5,000 years. So when we were given by Hashem after 1950 years Israel, the world would have you believe it was a gift to people who were the victims of the Holocaust. Many of us believe, and it's okay if you don't believe Torah was divinely given, even though it was, Israel was... I don't have strong feelings on much of anything. By the way, my business cards are on the table on the way out. The Torah was divinely given, and Israel was our righteous place. I started to crack open the spine of these books, and I started to realize that a rock in the 80s thrown at a Jew was not a personal property crime. It was a crime against God himself, that Jews have a right to inhabit Israel. And the irony of ironies, as we all know, is Israel has become one of the most liberal democratic places on earth. This firm is, and nobody should ever mention the name of my firm, you're not here tonight, but people need to realize that one of my partners went to Israel last year, and he couldn't believe, a yarmulke from guy said, he asked a waitress in Eilat a question. The order of the holidays. Does Rosh Hashanah, when did the holidays come? And she looked at him and had to turn to a friend in Israel, didn't know if Rosh Hashanah came after Tisha B'Av, or wouldn't know that today is Tu B'Shvat. It is Tu B'Shvat. Wouldn't know the orders. And he came home and he was frustrated. And I didn't understand the frustration. Let me tell you where the world has gone as a New Yorker with 3 children. There are 225 people here. Most of the men wear yarmulkes. Really since BLM, but certainly since October 7th, I have watched, because I really am here at 6:30 in the morning till 10 at night, and there's 3 Shachris, Mincha, and Marivs here every night. I'm not saying I go to many of them, but I have watched most of the men come into this office and first put on their yarmulkes. In New York City, at a white shoe, fancy schmancy place, Jewish men are not putting on yarmulkes, and some of the women who wear some of our more traditional garb are dressing differently. This is in New York City. My son, who plays lacrosse on a national level, has mentioned to me more than once he's received comments on having a Jewish star when he's in Denver, or when he's in really exotic places like South New Jersey and Maryland. The world is not safe. It has never been safe for us, and one of the worst things that can ever be said is to talk about a silver lining after the rape and killing of our people. But I will tell you something that I'm witnessing. I live in a town just north of the city that's predominantly not Jewish. At our Chabad house, we have hundreds of people coming in, and they are saying, I finally realize that when my grandparents would tell me whether you have payas or whether you're wearing a fairly fancy suit and you completely disavow all religiosity, they're coming for us at the same time. It's an unfortunate thing that we are the hunted. And what do we ask for in return? All we're asking for is safety and peace. We are a nation that has given safe refuge to others, non-Jews, around the world. And now we were at war. But, as Golda Meir said, and I did see the movie recently, I thought it was terrible, but I did think there was one line that's apparently true. We can't lose because we have no other place to go. I will tell you that friends of mine on the extreme left, who I have lively debates with, of Jewish, non-Jewish, all of them are starting to realize at this point, things must change. And it must change by us and the world recognizing that Israel needs to be independent. Whether it's a theology or not, it's an incredible irony that it is okay for Arab nations to be theologies. It is okay for other countries to be nationalist. And I'm not saying I agree that Israel should be a theology. Yes, I do. But whether you do or you don't, and my wife would punch me right in the stomach, Israel must be Israel. It should not be dictated on how it rules and how it governs and how it protects itself by third parties. So I'm honored, absolutely honored to introduce Simcha Rothman. As I was studying about him and sharing with my wife that I had the honor of introducing him, the knee-jerk response in my house is, oh, this man is a right-wing extremist. And I wanted to make sure that I wasn't associating myself because I have 3 children, and I want to make sure that I'm not associating myself with lunatics. By the way, I'm a lunatic, but I want to make sure that I'm giving objective, fact-based existence to my children and let them decide where they swing religiously and politically. Simcha Rothman has been called an extremist because he wants really crazy things like self-governance, the idea of a theology, the idea that third parties shouldn't dictate how we live and rule, how we should fight, how we really, forget fight, how we should defend ourselves. As somebody whose family emigrated to mandatory Palestine from a really sexy place, Cleveland, Ohio, I think is where your family moved from. Candidly,
it was before mandatory Israel.
Yeah, I think candidly, mandatory Palestine may have been nicer than Cleveland, Ohio.
It was before. It was when the Ottoman Empire.
When the Ottomans were in rule. This is a man who has been a practicing lawyer, who studied at Northwestern University, and who is being lambasted in government for coming up with, and it's better for Simcha to tell you what he's thinking. Some of his extreme ideas are, let us give the Palestinians their own state. Let us do it. Let us, for the first time in our history, say, you know what? We're going to close the doors. Maybe we shouldn't take everybody in. Maybe we should swing a little bit right. Maybe we should help you to find your own home. And this is why he's called a right-wing extremist. You know, there's a concept in the Torah, mita keneged mita, I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, measure for measure, eye for eye. I think the United States of America and the whole world has lost sight of the fact that up is up and down is down. You commit a crime, other than extenuating circumstances, mentally infirm, you commit a crime, you do the time. Blue is blue, white is white, 2 + 2 is 4, merit-based, everything should come back into play. Yes, we have an obligation to lift up the elderly, the infirm, those who have been disenfranchised. Social advancement is meritorious in many factors. But we as a world have completely lost touch with reality. And we've lost touch so much that the world can watch and this United Nations can tell us that this was okay, that barbarism and horrible atrocities committed from one human to another are in any way justified. I'm proud that as Jews we realize they're not. And I hate to ever discuss a silver lining. But from all of these atrocities, may we all be empowered to recognize we need to help each other. Liberal, right-wing, we are Jews and we are unique. So against that background, a Knesset member who hasn't slept probably long before October 7th, I'm honored to hear what Simcha Rothman has to say to us, and I thank you all for coming this evening.